Hey, what's good? It's your boy, Miss Wonka7, back again with another vlog review. This time I'm going to review Wild Arms 2. It took me long enough to finish that up. Again, I got all this stuff, Breathfire 4, Wild Arms 1 and 2, on a sale from PSN during March. Of course, it took me a while to get through each of these games consecutively and beat them all, but now that I have, it's time to get through the last one. I'm going to be reviewing this one in context to Wild Arms 1 since I played them semi-contextually. And, of course, I'm going to compare it. I'm going to hold it to its own merits, but to its own merits, it's a good game. It's It has some flaws in it, but it's a really good game. I enjoyed playing it, especially the earlier portion of the game, the first 9 hours, just like the original Wild Arms. My favorite parts of the game were the first 9 hours where you didn't have the vehicles. You didn't have any means of transportation. Now, visually, this doesn't really have the charm of the first Wild Arms, which kind of went with a semi SNES 16-bit style look. I mean, there are no sprites. There isn't that top-down Legend of Zelda camera angle that you see in Link to the Past and Zelda 1. But instead, you have something that's kind of like Xenogears, where there's sprites rendered in 3D that can move in 8 different directions, where there's a fully rotatable camera, and for the most part, besides that, everything is 3D except for some of the cutscene backgrounds. Just the ones for the cutscenes I noticed, like not the ones anywhere else, like in gameplay. There's some watercolor style paintings reminiscent of Saga Frontier 2 that look really good. The graphics are good, but again, it doesn't really capture that charm and nostalgia of Wild Arms 1, which is going to match with everything else I say in regards to Wild Arms 2. Great game, but doesn't really match the charm of the first installment. I would say it looks good. I especially like the intro title card every time you fight a boss for the first time. Especially the tracks that be playing. It's really great. I'd say on the visual end of the spectrum, this is a really good looking game. Depending on what disc you use, there's also an intro anime cutscene when you load it up, kind of like an anime opening. And these openings look kick-ass as well. They're some of my favorite openings to any video game besides the original Chrono Cross, intro to Chrono Cross. So that's kind of cool. But the important thing about the graphics is how it relates to the gameplay. You see, in this one, the puzzles, which are an essential element to Wild Arms and that series, are a lot more complex than they were in the first Wild Arms. Because you can rotate a camera, there are so many more possibilities of things you can do and types of puzzles you can use, whereas in Wild Arms 1, it got repetitive to a certain degree. And that's true for a lot of games where you're solving puzzles and dungeons from a top-down perspective. There's going to be repetition at some point, but now that you have a fully rotatable camera, a third dimension and shit, things get a little more interesting, and I liked solving some of the puzzles here. Alongside that, I really enjoyed the battle system. It's similar to Wild Arms 2, except you have more party members here, and it's a little simplified in a way. The force gauge system makes a comeback, but it completely replaces MP. There's no magic in this game. There's no MP system in this game. So, really, instead, you're going to have to rely on your force gauge, which goes up every time you take damage, every time you use a physical attack, and anytime you use a magic carrot. Now, the good thing is, the force gauge based abilities do cost force points, but just the regular attacks that require a certain threshold of force, it doesn't really cost anything. So that's good. What sucks about this though is that you can't really use magic out of battle, and this makes dungeon exploration really annoying because there's no like teleport spell to get out of a dungeon. There's a teleport item that's unlimited in resources to warp you from place to place, which is really useful, and you get it really early in the game. But there's no teleport spell, which that sucks. Next, well, besides that, arms. There's two characters that use guns now instead of just Rudy, and because you have 5 to 6 characters, gameplay is a little more. I'd say it's a little less strategical. You don't gotta worry about stats and rolls until maybe the super bosses, and there's only 2 that are hard. But other than that, like, this is probably one of the easiest games. Just put bullets in your enemies until they die. That's it. There's no real thinking involved. And that's a real disappointment. Because this game is somehow easier than Wild Arms 1, which was a really easy game. With this one, I don't really like that. It kind of makes the battles feel more dragged out than they need to be. That's the thing about like intense difficulty or intense easiness. It just makes everything a drag. Okay. As for the soundtrack, obviously the soundtrack's going to be the waviest part of a Wild Arms game. The soundtrack here is really good, especially towards the end game when you start to hear multiple tracks blooming out, like around the time you're fighting the final boss gauntlet. But other than that, this game has a kick-ass soundtrack that gets really repetitive because you're going through a bunch of towns and dungeons, and that can be a little bit annoying. World map exploration is even more annoying than it was in Wild Arms 1, up until you get to Lombardia, the like flying dragon. Once you get him, it becomes a little easier, but that flying like airship that you get after the first 9 hours, it makes the mid game such a drag. It's horrible. So soundtrack and like world map exploration are equally dragged out in the middle. Beginning it's really good, middle it kind of drops, and then towards the end it more than compensates for everything. Last thing would probably be the story. Now I really do like the story of this game. I like the first arc and the antagonist Odessa, this terrorist organization that's making the whole world like turn against it and unite. And then this too, which spoiler alert, has the Cooper Bell and Lord Blazer as the antagonists, and kind of opens up this internal struggle because our main character Ashley kind of serves as the vessel for Lord Blazer and gives him his strength. So all of this is interesting dramatic stuff, and there's a lot of interesting antagonists, heroes, dudes in between, and character interaction. All of that I like, but what kind of brings this down is the fact that really, how should I word this? The characters are kind of one dimensional. They're not as fleshed out and charming as the ones in Wild Arms 1. In Wild Arms 1, the characters seemed really simple, but they had depth to them, and things that kind of made you connect to them, especially with the way they interacted with one another. In Wild Arms 2, everything feels kind of forced, especially towards the end with the moral and the message of the story that there's no real ideal hero. Anyone can become something that represents that role, especially if they all work together for the right cause. With the translation of this game, they make that seem so complicated. They keep shoving this theme down our throat, which was really bad. And some of these antagonists and side antagonists, like, really a little dimension and depth could have done this game some good, given it some of the charm the original had. But other than that, I really like Wild Arms 2. Really good game. I know it seems very critical of me the way I'm talking about it, but I really had a lot of fun playing this, and I would recommend it. Just get the first game first. Anyways, you've been your boy, Mr. Wonka 7, and suck my dick.